Okay, there we go. We're live. This is the Men in Polos podcast. I'm
Alright,
Yousuf Shamsi. That is,
Sid Biswas.
and we're gonna be doing 2014 NBA Finals preview. And I guess this is part one or episode one.
Episode one. The finals today is Thursday. The finals start tonight.
Yeah,
What is
this
it?
is
7 or
part.
8 p.m. Something like that.
What? Yeah, what time does it start?
Yeah, like 8 p.m. I guess. It's in San Antonio, Miami Heat versus San Antonio Part Two.
Part two, yes.
Yes.
And
So
San Antonio is trying to avenge their
let's
loss
let's
last
recap. Let's
year.
do a quick recap of last year. What happened in the finals?
Okay, so last year went to 7 games, and in game six, the Spurs were literally like 5 seconds away from winning it. And then Chris Bosh got that crazy rebound because Tim Duncan wasn't in the game and Danny Green wasn't boxing out. And he got the rebound, and like Manu Ginobili was there too, but he got it. And then he threw it to Ray Allen, who, without even looking down, like scooted back behind the 3 point line, hit that three, and then that tied the game, I think. And then they won in overtime and went to game seven. The Heat won.
And that Ray Allen shot, that was one of the best shots I've seen live ever, probably.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
remember, I remember I was on the phone with Scott. Scott is one of our friends
Hmm.
while it was happening, and we were on a time delay, so I saw everything before he did, and
Oh my
I
God.
couldn't react to give it away to Scott, and it happened, and I was like, "What?" Scott's like, "What? What happened? What happened?" And then he started going crazy, and
Yeah, you were like silent, so it's like say something.
but yeah, that was an insane shot, and then that is probably San Antonio players go to sleep every night having nightmares of
Yes.
Ray Allen. Now.
Yes. And somehow they are back in the finals again because it's hard to get over something like that.
Stronger and better.
And they're a better team.
Right. So I guess you want to talk about San Antonio first?
Sure, let's do San Antonio.
All right. So San Antonio, best record in the NBA, home court throughout. You know,
Yep.
let's start with their leaders, Greg Popovich would say, and
Yep.
old man Riverwalk, Tim Duncan.
Oh man, Riverwalk, Tim Duncan. Yeah.
That's what they
He
call him.
wait, is your audio kind of weird by the way?
Um,
There,
huh?
you sound much better like that.
Like this? Okay.
Yeah, just stay
I'll
like
speak
that.
like this.
But yeah, so Greg Popovich, he's been coaching there since like 97 or 98, and they've made the playoffs like almost every year since then. And
Hmm.
then a lot of people thought, including me, that like after 07-ish that they were going to go on a decline after
Right.
that last championship, but they just keep reinventing themselves.
So yeah, one of the ways they reinvented themselves is you never thought of the Spurs as like a really fast offensive team because they're
Right.
so old. But
Right.
like you watch a Spurs game, I by the way, just I used to really dislike the Spurs because I
Really?
am a Lakers
Oh,
fan.
you're a Lakers fan.
But when I'm watching them now, I just can't help but enjoy how they play basketball.
Right, me too. I don't think they're boring at all.
Yeah, they used to. I think they used to be boring, and now they reinvented themselves in a way. They're just moving the ball around. And one thing I'm happy about is that the Spurs and the Heat are probably, you know, the two best passing teams in the league.
Right.
So you have, like, you got the whole like passing offense, and you have LeBron on the other side, who's like you know,
The superstar, the best in the NBA.
does everything you can ever ask for on a
Yeah.
team. So I guess the question I had that was, interesting. How does that match up, like the team offense versus superstar? Who wins? Who's going to make the big plays? Like, what is a more reliable thing for a 7 game series?
I mean, I think if we're talking like what's more reliable, I think it's the Spurs because they have more players that they can go to. They have a deeper team, and I guess that's more reliable. But then in the past has shown, like with Jordan's teams in the 90s, that having a superstar is enough. And that's why it's like so much of a close matchup. Um, yeah, I don't know.
I think the Heat are
Spurs are
actually
deeper than last year, though.
The Spurs are better, yeah. And then I think the Heat are probably a little bit worse because D Wade is older. They don't, Shane Battier hasn't really done much, which he was a big contributor last year.
Right.
Lost Mike Miller, who was huge, big in the series last year. But then I think the Heat, like extras on the bench, they're kind of underrated. We still got guys who can, hit big shots, who can, I think they each fit their role really well, but each of them have had an experience of being the man in the past. Like Ray Allen was the man on the Bucks, and somewhat on the Celtics, and Chris Bosh was the man in Toronto. But now they've kind of fit into role players. But if you need, they can still, do something if the game like is in their hands at the last second or something like that.
Right, and now another guy that used to be the man on his team was Rashard Lewis when he was on the Magic, and
Yeah.
kind of like in Seattle, and now he's starting for them randomly, and he's kind of
Where did he
replacing
come
Mike
from?
Miller in that role.
Where did he come from? He wasn't here. Like he was not here in the season.
I don't know. Like I thought he was retired. I thought he was done. Like I forgot about Rashard Lewis's existence.
Yeah, the ghost of Rashard Lewis is back.
Yeah, and he's back and he's starting. And that's the other like thing about the Heat and the Spurs. Both of them have had a ton of different lineups this entire year. And one of the things that's going to be interesting is how they're going to try to match up. Like the Spurs,
Yeah.
by the way, your face went dark, but the Spurs in the regular season, they were starting Splitter and Duncan all year, which is a big lineup, but Splitter can't really score and he can't keep up with a small ball team like the Heat. So
Yeah.
if the Heat go small, are they going to start Splitter or are they going to stick with that? Because they haven't been doing that. They started Bonner in the last series. They've started Diaw. So I
Yeah.
think that's going to be interesting because I think both teams are going to be trying to match the other team in terms of either going small or going big.
And I think this is the reason that these two teams are the best teams in the NBA. Like I think the biggest flaw that OKC and Indiana had was that they didn't do that during the season. They kind of, they
Right.
made their focus like we're gonna win a lot of games. Like even OKC, they started the season with someone like what's his name? I forgot his first name, but
Pablo
Lamb,
Cephalosha?
Jeremy Lamb and Cephalosha.
Oh,
Like,
Jeremy Lamb, yeah.
it was a big part of it. Like there was like this huge hype about him, being a good three, and then he just kind of disappeared. And they really didn't try to work him back into the lineup. And the Pacers relied so much on their starting lineup. And when it comes to the playoffs, you have to adjust and you need to like. And I think Pop and Spoelstra always have had this in mind where they try out all these different combinations so that when they are thrown a curveball, they're much more adept at adjusting to it.
Yeah, and like the Heat, sometimes it fails, sometimes it works, but sometimes it fails. They tried signing Michael Beasley because they thought, okay, maybe he can be another scorer. They signed Greg Oden, okay, he could be the Roy Hibbert stopper. They signed Rashard Lewis. They're signing veterans. They signed Ray Allen. So they're willing, like the organization and the coach is willing to like change the way they do things instead of just sticking with one way. I think that's kind of a problem with like Scott Brooks. Like he'll start Perkins no matter what, even though that's bad for the team sometimes.
Yeah.
And like you said with Jeremy Lamb, he was playing a lot of games, but then for some reason, uh, Brooks didn't trust him in the playoffs. So
Right.
definitely with Ulstra and Popovich. Usually when it's Popovich versus someone, he's totally going to outcoach them. And I don't know if in this series that's going to be completely true. Like I think he's a better coach than Spoelstra, but I think Spoelstra, like if anybody, could match him.
Yeah, that's the other interesting match. There's all these great player matchups and, team versus LeBron matchup, but there's also the Pop Spoelstra matchup, and they're very similar in
Hmm.
the sense that, I mean, Spoelstra doesn't have those, like, witty interviews and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But they're very, in their coaching mindset, I think they're very, they're willing to not settle for, like, what's the norm. They're willing to push the envelope and do something new, and they're kind of forward-thinking coaches, which I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, like it's gonna be a good series, and it's not just the coaches; it goes up to the GMs. Like I think R.C. Buford, that's the Spurs GM. He just won Executive of the Year this year, and then Pat Riley won Executive of the Year last year. So it's like the entire organization,
Yeah.
like two good, like strong organizations with the coaching and the players and everything.
All right. So the thing about depth reminded me. So Tony Parker, I don't know if there's any news on him about playing in the series or not. I'm going to assume that he's going to play, but if he doesn't play or if he's not 100%, how does that affect the Spurs?
I think it affects them a ton because I think like Ginobili's a penetrator, but I think Parker more than anybody can really attack the Heat and penetrate, and
Mm.
his penetration opens up everything else. So
Yeah.
if I'm pretty sure he's going to play, but if he's hobbled or if he isn't able to attack, he's not a great three-point shooter. They rely on him attacking, and I know they won Game 6 of the OKC game, but that game like went into overtime, and OKC made a comeback. So I think they're going to need him. If he's not at 100%, I don't think they can win the series.
Really? I don't know. I feel like so okay, Tony Parker I think is very important, but I do think it presents a matchup issue for them because well, unless the Heat are playing, Chalmers and Cole a lot, like he's
Yeah.
definitely a liability on defense, but I think him Tony Parker, you need him in the game, but at the same time you have kind of this other alter non Tony Parker offense that is still efficient and
Right, right.
they still play well. I don't know. I wouldn't go as far as to say that I don't think they'd win the series without him, but I think it'll be difficult. I don't know. I just like it's. I don't think it's as crucial as like let's say like Duncan being out because yeah, if Duncan's out, then yeah, series is over.
Right. I just think like yeah, they have Patty Mills and they're a good they move the ball and they can still play offense without Parker. They don't rely on Parker to play good offense. But
Mm.
I think when it comes to late game situations,
Yes.
and just need somebody to create. They have Ginobili, but Parker's enough. Like remember game one last year, Parker hit that like crazy bank
Yeah.
shot that won the
Like
game.
last second.
Like yeah, they're gonna need someone because Duncan going to him in the post. I don't know if that's the best late game situation thing. It did work
Yeah.
in game 6, but he's not what he used to be. I just think they need somebody who can break down the defense.
And he's a great free throw shooter. So like, if
Right. And he can knock down a mid range shot like him and Duncan on the pick and roll. But then again, like they still have Bellinelli, they still have Patty Mills, they still have Ginobili, they still have Leonard, so they do have like guys who can create.
okay, who's guarding LeBron?
Oh, Kawhi Leonard for sure. And
How
that's
does he?
good because he can match up with LeBron in terms of size. He's big, he's
Mm.
strong, and I think he can kind of take him one on one. Yeah, they'll bring the double team occasionally, but he can take him one on one, and that helps because if you double team LeBron, obviously he's going to pass out and they're going to get like 3-point shots. But what he has to do is he has to attack offensively too because he has to make LeBron work defensively.
Yeah, he's probably the Spurs' best fast break player, and
Right.
if he gets out running, you can really well. But I don't know if LeBron's gonna guard him because remember last year LeBron started to guard Tony Parker because if like let's say Chalmers guards Tony Parker, Parker's probably gonna have a field day. So they might switch it up and put LeBron on Parker, but then who guards Leonard? It's kind of a mix, but I wouldn't be surprised to see LeBron on Parker a lot.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either in like a late game situation. I think like through the first couple of quarters, you're just going to keep it like a situation where a small forward is guarding small forward. So LeBron's going to guard Leonard. But if Parker starts going off, like this reminds me of Derrick Rose when they faced the Heat like a couple of years ago, when he was dominating, whether it was Cole or Chalmers, they just put LeBron on him and
Right.
LeBron can shut anyone down.
Who's uh who's your X factor for this series?
Okay, let's pick an X factor from both the Spurs and the Heat.
Okay.
Um, For the Spurs, God, they have so many guys. I mean, I think Leonard is one of them just because like he's talented offensively, but if he's like confident in attacking the rim like he was last year's playoff, and if he can knock down the 3-point shot, then he's going to be big for them. So I think,
I think I want to go with Boris Diaw.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, in those games, like when the Thunder were blowing them out and Diaw was in late, he was giving the Thunder a lot of problems because there wasn't anyone to guard him. And I don't think there's anyone on the Heat other than LeBron who could. And even LeBron, like Diaw is bigger than LeBron, so he can like really like bang with them down low. But I don't think anyone on the Heat can really, like match up with Diaw. But so I think that could be an X factor in certain like stretches of the game when Duncan is out or they're relying on the bench. So now you have someone you need to guard who's thick. I mean, thick is like the perfect word to
Yeah,
describe it.
yeah, he is pretty thick.
He's thick, down low. Like if you get him on like Richard Lewis, like I think he could. I think he could like have a couple of good games and good stretches.
Yeah, last year he was actually guarding LeBron in the finals, and
The,
I forget what the stat was or the
yeah,
percentage, but like
the,
LeBron was held to a low percentage when Diaw was guarding him. And like you said, the other thing about Diaw is he can both shoot the three. He's not a great three-point shooter, but he can shoot it, so you're forced to guard him. And then he could also post. He bullies little guys.
he just knows how to play basketball. Like
Yeah, yeah.
he's like that guy, and if you ever go play pickup and there's like this
Right.
guy, and he just knows he's not very athletically gifted, but he like knows how to pass the ball. He can knock down a shot. He can post. He can just has like basic skills that a lot of NBA players actually, make up for with their athleticism. But he
Right.
has those skills that can give people trouble.
Yeah. So if he is the X factor and maybe Leonard for the Spurs, then what about the Heat? The Heat, they have LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, and then they have a ton of just role players.
There, LeBron is the X factor for everything, but I don't know. I think for the Heat,
I think maybe Chris Anderson could be just because he's a good defender. If he can give them any offensive scoring, just like off the pick and roll,
mhm.
like just scoring or offensive rebounds, just his energy, like when he plays well, the Heat play well. So I mean, I think he could be an X factor for them.
I'm gonna go with Ray Allen just because like he's someone who can. He doesn't need a lot to really contribute in a game. Like you can put him in for 5 minutes and he can make three threes and he can have an impact on a game without having to the offense have to go through him. You know,
Right, right,
so I think he can heat up at any moment. He's definitely clutch. He's probably going to be guarded. I don't know who's good. Probably going to be guarded by if Leonard guards LeBron and I don't know if Ginobili's guarding Wade or someone. If he's
Mhm.
on the court with Wade, he's probably going to have someone either smaller than him or slower than him guarding him. So
Right, and he could just run around those picks all day.
yeah, exactly. He's just going to run around those picks, and I think late game Miami was probably going to go with like either Cole or what's his face, Cole or Chalmers, Allen,
Oh.
Wade, Bosh, and LeBron, like a small lineup.
Right, right. So Bosh at center,
Yeah, I mean
LeBron at power forward.
I don't know, like it would depend on who's on the other side, but I think that would be that would be a cool lineup to put out there because that would give the Spurs some trouble because then they'd have to figure out who to guard between you stick Leonard on LeBron and then you have to figure out who to guard everywhere else.
Well, I think yeah, the hardest one to figure out is who's going to guard Bosh because
Yeah,
Bosh is going to start. He has a 3-point shot now.
that
Duncan
is.
can't
I
go
think
out
this
that
is
far.
back to the series. He's like he you slowly become like when did he develop a 3-point shot? He can now sink three. This is like out of nowhere.
He
But
just like I was literally reading something like just this year. I forget who it like. I think it was Ray Allen or somebody who was like, "Dude, just step a couple of feet back. You can knock down the three." And now he's hitting threes, and that's huge, dude. Like if you have Chris Bosh and he's your center and
yeah,
he can shoot threes, like who's gonna guard him? Who are you gonna
yeah,
put up?
exactly. Don't like really. I mean, Duncan's not gonna go out that far. Even D'Lo's not gonna like. He's not that quick.
I
So
think Diao would have to be the only guy. But if Bosh just pump fakes, he could drive right past him.
yeah, exactly. So and I mean, who else does?
The
Yeah, the
Spurs have.
Spurs don't have anyone else on the bench. Their bench is very like offensive. They don't have.
Yeah, they don't have defensive like stopper.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I don't think they have anybody that'd be able to. The thing is, if the Heat do that, the Spurs have to take advantage on the other end. Like you have to dump it down to Duncan, and at
exactly.
least he draws a foul or he kicks it out. Because like small ball is one thing, but the obvious like downfall of that is that you have to take advantage on the other end, and not too many teams can do that because like not too many teams have post up players. But if they do, please go to Duncan and just like let him post up and let him like create, you know?
So the thing that the Spurs are doing in Game 6 last series a lot, they're switching on the pick and roll to get Duncan a mismatch, and they were going
Right.
down low to Duncan. So you saw
Right.
Duncan being guarded by like Fisher or Westbrook, so many
Yeah.
possessions in a row, and I was like, how are you not fixing this? What they're gonna try to do that to Miami probably too because Miami's small. Like, how do you think they could, in that situation, what do you do if you're Miami?
Well,
Like,
one thing is you try as hard as you can not to switch because
mhm,
if you switch, there's gonna like because the Thunder they were automatically switching. They weren't even thinking about it. They weren't like, okay, let's fight over the screen. Like their strategy was we're just gonna switch and we're gonna take our chances.
yeah.
If you're the Heat. I would probably try not to switch. And even if you get in a mismatch situation, like don't foul, make him make a post move and make him make a shot. You know,
Yeah,
like don't bail him out.
yeah, that's exactly. And I think if you have, you're probably looking at someone like Chalmers or I mean, the Heat are very savvy. Like the Heat too, I think they don't get enough credit for being a very, skilled and savvy team. They're not all veterans, but they think like veterans. I feel like even someone like Chalmers he'll make of course like he'll have mistakes, he'll have bad games, but I think when he's like in those he has enough experience in big situations to know like what the right thing to do is or to what. So I think they'll be able to figure out a way to adjust to it. And
Right.
I think the Thunder were just not. I don't think the Thunder were as prepared to face the different adjustments that they had needed to make.
Right. I think that like goes back to the coaching again. Like they've built a system. So like Chalmers in any other system, like Chalmers is already kind of a fool. So like in any other system, but like when you have like guys like LeBron, you have other veterans there, and you have that system in that organization. Like even a guy like Cole, he's so young, but they drafted him knowing that this guy is not going to be like a guy who's going to cut. Like this guy will fit within the system. So like they do rely on LeBron, but they're still like a smart team. They know what they're doing. You know.
Yeah. What do you think about What are your thoughts on Dwayne Wade? How do you think he's going to perform this series?
So I think he's definitely going to perform better than he did last year because they're resting him this year. Last year, I think he had that knee injury. He just didn't play well.
Mhm.
Um, and like it's weird to call Dwayne Wade an X factor, but like
Yeah.
when he is playing well, like they're gonna win because you know LeBron's gonna play well, and like if they can have, and he's shooting like pretty well from the 3 point line actually. So if he could be knocking down his jump shots, if he's attacking like if he's healthy, then I think he's going to be fine.
Yeah, I think he'll be fine. I think he's definitely better off going into this series than last year. He's
Right,
helping out. I don't think he's like an X factor because I think he will be there. So
right, right.
I just think like I don't think there's all the speculation about him not having a good game. I think he's going to have a good series
Yeah,
without.
I think he's going to be fine. I think they overplay his struggles.
Yeah, so I think they're good. What else is there? Do you have any other thoughts about the series? Like any other burning questions?
Um, Maybe home court advantage. Like last year, the Heat had home court advantage. Now the Spurs. Oh, and the other thing is they're finally, I think, since the first time.
Oh yeah, they're doing the
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're doing the two two
1-1.
one one one. So I mean, I never liked the 2-3-2. Really,
I
I
don't
didn't.
know.
I liked them alternating. Um, but the Spurs having home court, I think that is also a little bit of advantage because remember, Game 6 and Game 7 last year, they were both in Miami, and those were the two deciding games.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I think, like, if it does go down to a Game 7, not to say that the Heat aren't a good road team, but the Spurs having home court advantage, I mean, I think that's a little bit of an advantage for them.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. Yeah, I think either of them can win on the other team's home
Right,
court.
right.
And honestly, I don't think home court is that big of a factor here.
Yeah,
I think like Game 7 in Miami, Game 7 in San Antonio, I think it would be both teams. I think would be able to are good enough to be able to win. So I don't know. I mean,
yeah.
we'll see.
Both teams have like the kind of mental focus you need. Like they're not going to be disturbed by playing, on the road.
Yeah, I don't. I think it's a factor. Is that I don't think it's like it's probably like lower on the list of the factors. So
Right.
anything else? Or should we go to predictions? What do you think?
I mean, we can go to predictions.
All right, let's start with
Well, let's do a prediction for game one first,
okay, game one
because
prediction.
because
Oh,
I think the Spurs are obviously pissed off from last year, and they've been waiting for this forever, and they're at home. I think like the Heat better be ready for them to be like super aggressive. But I think the Spurs are going to win game one.
I think.
Um,
Go ahead. What?
no, go ahead. That was just game one.
I think they're going to win too. I think actually they're going to win big, probably like 15 points. I'm going to say
Oh
that.
wow.
I don't think every single game in this series is going to be close. I think there's going to be close a game when the Spurs just like I feel like the way the Spurs play is you wouldn't be surprised to see them blow out a really good team, and it's not because the team isn't good. It's just that the Spurs are can be so efficient in their offensive, you know, movement and stuff. So I
Right.
think there will be games where the Spurs blow 'em, and then I think there's going to be games where like LeBron and Wade go crazy and they're going to, you know, win by 15, 20 points. So I think I'm going to say the Spurs win big today in game one.
Right. And just another thought, and we kind of touched on this. It's like there's going to be times, even though the Spurs offense is so good and they move the ball and they have a lot of shooters and players who can kind of score in different ways, there's going to be those times where they're lacking offense just because they don't have that one go-to guy, especially against a team like the Heat with like defenders like LeBron and Wade being so aggressive. Like there's going to be some times where they get bogged down and they're going to have little stretches where they kind of go on a drought. So like if that happens in some of these games, I think those are the games that the Heat are going to win. But then again, the Spurs can make up for those games with all their movement and all their passing and stuff. So that's again, it's going to come back to like LeBron being the go-to guy and the superstar, and the Heat having the superstars versus like the team factor for the Spurs. But yeah, definitely game one. We're both predicting the Spurs win.
Yeah.
Um,
Who's
are
wait, before we get to the series, I want to say
okay, okay.
who's going to be the most valuable player for both teams in this series? Like who's gonna have the best performance in the series for each team?
Okay, I mean, like for the Heat, it's hard not to say LeBron.
He does LeBron. I
LeBron,
think,
and that's because like LeBron earlier in his career in the playoffs, he would kind of shy away from the big moments. You could tell he was a little bit passive or nervous or whatever. He's totally gotten over that. He's aggressive in the fourth quarter now. He goes to the rim. He's
yeah.
confidently taking shots.
So I want to talk about this a little bit before we get like
Okay.
everyone's giving LeBron so much crap about passing it to.
To
Uh,
Bosh.
I mean, look. First of all, when we always get on players for not making the right decision in clutch times, like you know, for like forcing up a shot, and then when LeBron here's someone who like makes the right decision every single time,
Right.
and we still kind of I get the idea of like you like to see him go up and like you know I do think he's a little like shaky at the free throw line maybe, but I just think like you shouldn't get on him so much for you know I think he made the right decision. Like last series they I think they one of the games they beat the Nets like on a Chris Bosh three just like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
So I don't know.
I don't understand the criticism either. I always think that you should make the right play. It's just people really are attracted to the whole idea of the superstar making the last shot. And if you think about Michael and Kobe, those guys, no matter if they, well, Jordan did pass it off a couple of times, like
Yeah,
that pass to Paxson, the pass to Kerr,
yeah.
okay? But like usually those guys, they were gonna take the final shot no matter what. And LeBron, he just doesn't have that mindset all the time. He's like, I'm gonna pass it to the open guy. And people just want to criticize because they want to see the superstar taking the last shot.
I
And
think
like
and I think that makes it tougher for the defense because now like okay first of all LeBron Kobe's never gonna pass it.
no. He's not. He could be triple teamed. He could be 5 feet behind the 3-point line, fading away. He's gonna take the shot.
Because that makes it so easy for the defense to like defend. You know what's gonna happen. But like I
Right,
think
right.
this gives you a factor of like he might, you know, LeBron might pass the ball, so we can't just leave someone open and double team on him. You know, so it's like so
Yeah,
that's
no, I agree.
so for the Spurs, MVP for the Spurs.
See, that one's a little bit tougher. Like Parker's usually their number one guy, but I don't know in this series, like especially if they put Wade or LeBron on him.
Mhm.
Ginobili's old. Duncan is like old. They don't go to him in the post as much. I mean, do you have anybody in mind? Like
I think it's
specific?
gonna be Duncan. I really think like he out of everyone is the most pissed off about last year.
Yeah.
Like he missed that like you know last like the little bunny.
Oh yeah. The bunny they called it. The
And I
bunny.
think like it just seems like he is going to have a couple of those like old school Duncan games because the Heat don't really have someone who can they don't have the big men to guard him
He's
and
too strong for Chris Anderson.
he's too strong for like any of those guys and I think he's gonna be like the key factor for the Spurs in this
Yeah,
year.
and Ginobili, like he made big plays. Like he had that huge three in Game 6. I think they're going to need him because I think at the end of games he's another guy that they're going to have to go to because he's a veteran He's a little bit crazy. He's willing to take like, tough shots.
And he
So
had
I,
a
so
a
yeah.
really bad end of the series last year too. So he's probably got a little bit of that. You
And,
know,
and it's another thing is one of these games, like last year, I think it was game five where Danny Green hit like seven threes. They're
yeah.
gonna have one of those games. It's gonna be either I'm predicting Bellinelli. Like one of these games, he's gonna hit a bunch of threes or something,
I
or like
was,
Patty Mills is gonna go off. He's
yeah.
gonna play that kind of
Patty
like Gary
Mills is gonna
Neal
have
role.
a Gary Neal game.
Yes, yes. Either him or Patty Mills is gonna have a Gary Neal game.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly. All right. So moment of truth. Who wins the series, and in how many games? This is the. I think this is the hardest one to predict so far. I've weighed both sides, and I think either team can win. So I think it's very difficult to make a prediction about this one.
it's like I'm like torn because like I'm more favoring the Spurs because they're more like team oriented, I guess. But the Heat move the ball well too. It's not like that. I feel like the Spurs are like deeper and they have a lot of ways to score. But like the LeBron factor, dude. Like if LeBron and
Yeah,
Wade decide they're just gonna like on defense first, like if they're gonna be hyper aggressive, they're gonna shut down the Spurs. And if LeBron just goes off, like I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with the Spurs. And I'll say Spurs in seven because it's not. I'm not going to say Spurs in six because it's too close to say that.
I know. I think I'm gonna agree. I've every time I've thought about this, I just feel something that the Spurs this year they're better than last year.
hmm
I think that it's gonna be very close series, regardless of who wins. I think it's gonna go to seven, and I just think the Spurs are gonna come out on top. They're efficient on offense. They've always been a defensively sound team. You know, they don't have LeBron, true, but they have people who can step up in clutch moments, and they have a
Right.
really like veteran, wily, good team. So I want to say I do want to see LeBron win three in a row, but I
Yeah, I would be happy for LeBron if he
yeah,
did.
I
But
think the Spurs.
so we're both officially locking in Spurs
Spurs in
in
seven,
seven.
unless
Okay,
the
we
Heat win
we
tonight.
can't turn back now. If the Heat win tonight, we can't be like, okay, wait, no, no, I'm saying Heat in six. We got
We'll record this again the exact same way and then change the last. Like I'll like
yeah,
double over the
yeah.
last one.
Nobody will know. That's what we'll do.
But yeah. Anyways, that's
Okay.
we're gonna try to do this, frequently,
hmm
and we just wanted to start. The NBA Finals is the best, time to start doing this. I think this year's final is going to be amazing. Two great teams. So
Yep. It'll
hopefully
be
we'll be
fun to
back
watch.
with some more analysis, some more previews on various topics in sports,
Yeah.
pop culture,
Could be
movies.
anything.
It could be anything that we think of talking about.
Philosophy, the
Yeah, we
art.
can philosophize a little bit. I don't. Yeah, a little art, modern art, stuff like that.
Yep.
So that's what it's gonna be. Men in polos, and hopefully we'll be
Ben and
wearing polos
Paul's
every time.
episode one complete.
Episode one. Here we go. Peace out.
Peace.